In this video, we are going to explain the meaning of change in demand and change in quantity demanded. Changes in demand, that is of two types: change in quantity demanded is also known as movement along the demand curve, and the other one is change in demand or shift of demand curve. Change in quantity demanded is of two types: extension in demand or increase in quantity demanded, or rightward movement along the demand curve. And the other type of change in quantity demanded is contraction in demand, decrease in quantity demanded, or leftward movement along the demand curve. Change in demand is also two types: increase in demand or rightward or outward shift of demand curve, and decrease in demand or leftward or inward shift of demand curve. Now let us explain this change in demand and change in quantity demanded. What is their difference? Change in quantity demanded. It is defined as when more or less of a commodity demanded due to decrease or increase in its own price, being other things remaining constant. It is just the law of demand. When more of a commodity demanded, when price decreases. And when less of a commodity demanded, when price of its own increases and other things remaining constant. So the law of demand is the change in quantity demanded. Demand curve moves along the same demand curve towards right or left. So there is no new demand curve. It is the same demand curve. When price decreases, it moves downward. When price increases, it moves upward. This is already we have discussed two types: extension in demand or increase in quantity demanded. That is rightward or downward movement along the demand curve. This and decrease in quantity demanded or contraction in demand, that is leftward. Yes. Why is there change in quantity demanded? The change in quantity demanded, it is because of change in its own price. That is decrease or increase in its own price, being other things remaining constant. What happens to the curve? The curve moves along the same curve. That is only one curve. There is no new curve is formed. Only the same curve. It moves either this side or this side. This is the table which explains the extension and contraction or rightward movement or leftward movement of the demand curve. Price of a commodity is given 1, 2, 3. The demand quantity demanded of the commodity is 3, 2, and 1. Now when price decreases, quantity demanded rises. And when price from here, if the price decreases, quantity demanded increase from this. And quantity demanded increases, then the curve moves from this point to this point. When price rises, quantity demanded decreases. So when price from here, it rises, quantity demanded decreases from here. So in case of change in quantity demanded, the demand curve moves along the same demand curve. Now let us see what happens in case of change in demand. Change in demand is defined when more or less of a commodity demanded due to change in other determinants. Then its own price. Such as change in the price of substitute goods, change in price of complementary goods, change in income of the consumer, change in the taste and preference of consumer, change in the level of income, change in the number of buyers. All these are responsible for change in demand. In this case, the demand curve shifts towards right or left. So demand curve shifts either this side or left side. This is of two types: increase in demand. In case of increase in demand, demand curve shifts rightward. And in case of decrease in demand, demand curve shifts leftward. It happens due to change in other determinants of demand. For example, favorable and unfavorable taste and preference of consumer when other things remaining constant. And in this case, already we have seen that demand curve shifts towards right or left. So there is a shift of demand curve, a new demand curve is formed. Let us consider this demand schedule showing the change in demand. Price price is constant in other price remaining constant, so price remains constant 2. Initially the price at rupees 2 per unit, the quantity demanded 10 units when there is a normal preference of the consumer. Now, due to favorable taste and preference of consumer at a given price, the demand for the commodity increases. And the demand curve shifts towards right. Demand curve shifts right side. And when it becomes unfavorable test, then we find that the demand for the commodity decreases and the demand curve shifts towards left. So if the OP is a given price at 2, the demand for the commodity at 2 rupees when there is a normal preference is OQ. OQ means 10 units. Now when it becomes favorable, then at the same price, OP price, that is rupees 2 per unit, the quantity demand, the demand for the commodity increases from OQ to OQ1, that is 15. And the demand curve, DD demand curve, shifts towards right. Similarly, when it becomes unfavorable, taste and preference of consumer at the given price of the commodity, the demand curve shifts, DD demand curve shifts towards left to D0, showing decrease in demand from OQ to OQ0, that is from 10 to 5 units. So in this way, we can explain the change in demand. So I have seen the change in demand and change in quantity demanded is totally different. The main thing you have to remember that change in demand is caused due to change in other determinants of demand. And whereas change in quantity demanded, it is because of change in its own price and other determinants remain constant. Here other determinants are variable in case of change in demand, and in case of change in quantity demanded, other determinants are constant, price is variable. So price varies, other determinants constant, results in change in quantity demanded. And price constant, other determinants change, then there is change in demand. In case of change in demand, there is a shift of demand curve, the new demand curve is formed. But in case of change in quantity demanded, the demand curve moves along the same demand curve. There is no new demand curve is formed. So in this way, we can differentiate increase in demand and extension in demand. Literally, we see that the extension and increase are the same meaning. But in economics, increase in demand and extension in demand are the two different terms. So let us see what is increase in demand. When more of a commodity demanded due to change in other determinants of demand other than its own price. So it is just one part of the definition of change in demand. More of a commodity demanded due to change in other determinants. and the price remaining constant. Extension in demand, when more of a commodity demanded due to increase in its own price, being other things remaining constant. So it is the one part of the law of demand. More when more demanded, when price decreases. And here other determinants of demand remain constant. Cause. What is the cause? Change in other determinants other than price. Change in other determinants of demand. So there is increase or decrease in price of substitute good, increase or decrease in price of complementary goods, increase or decrease in the level of income, etc. Decrease in price of its own. Extension in demand. It causes because of decrease in price of its own, being other things remaining constant. This is the table showing the increase in demand. Price is constant. And price, let us say the price of substitute good rises 5 to 10. In that situation, the demand for the commodity at the given price will increase from 10 units to 20 units. And if we represent for 5, we get the demand curve. Showing 10 units at rupees 5. Now, at a given price, the demand increases to 20. Then you get the D complementary curve, which shows rightward shift of the demand curve, DD demand curve to D dash D dash. So this represents increase in demand from 10 units to 20 units when the price of its substitute good rises from 5 to 10. So it happens due to increase in price of substitute good. Price of the commodity remain constant. And in case of extension in demand, we see the price of the commodity decreases from 10 to 5 per unit. As a result, quantity demanded increases from 5 to 10 units. These can be represented by this diagram. When the price of the commodity 10, the quantity demanded 5 units. When the price of the commodity is 5, the quantity demanded is 10 units. So there is increase in quantity demanded from 5 units to 10 units. As a result, the demand curve from A point, it moves downward to B point. This shows extension in demand. In the similar way, we can differentiate decrease in demand and decrease in quantity demanded or contraction in demand. Just only changes where we have to make more, less. Okay, this one will just reverse order will write. Here the 10 and 5, so the demand curve will shift this side. And it is because of decrease in price of substitute good. In this case, the reverse table 5 to 10, 10, 5, and the demand curve will move from this way. It will change the direction. The other things, decrease in price will write increase in price. So it will be easy for us to differentiate the increase in demand, extension in demand, decrease in demand, or contraction in demand if we know the change in demand and change in quantity demanded. Change in quantity demanded 2 type, extension and contraction, and change in demand is 2 type, increase in demand and decrease in demand. Change in demand causes shift of demand curve, whereas change in quantity demanded results movement along the demand curve. So it will be easy for us to differentiate between these terms if we know the definition and the reason of such changes. Now let us know the another things that we require to know the types of demand. Sometimes the definition comes price demand. What is price demand? It refers to different quantities of goods or services which a customer will buy at a quoted price and given time, considering other things remaining constant. So it depends on the price. Quoted price means market price. Income demand. It refers to different quantities of goods or services which a customer will buy at different levels of income, considering other things remaining constant. Cross demand. This means that the product's demand does not depend on its own price, but depends on the price of other related goods, such as substitute or complementary goods. Then this is called the cross demand. When the demand for a commodity depends on the price of its other good, substitute good or complementary good. Direct demand. When goods or services satisfy an individual wants directly is known as direct demand. Such as we have purchased the butter for direct consumption. Derived demand or indirect demand. The goods or services demanded or needed for manufacturing other goods or manufacturing some goods which is known as derived demand. You need to construct building, you need cement, iron, you need sand. So these are the derived demand. You need rubber to make the tire and tubes. Joint demand. To produce a product, there are many things that are related to each other. For example, to produce bread, we need services like an oven, fuel, flour mill, etc. So the demand for other additional things to produce a product is known as joint demand. And finally, composite demand. A composite demand can be described when goods and services are utilized for more than one use or for more than one cause. Example, coal. Coal is used for cooking purpose. Coal is used for making electricity. Electricity is also another example of composite demand. It can be used for household purpose. It can be used to run the machineries, and it has the several uses. So these are the various types of demand. That's all for today. Thank you.